Assalamualaikum dan selamat sejahtera. Selamat datang ke Kita Family Podcast. Podcast ini membincangkan tentang kepentingan hidup bermasyarakat dan kepelbagaian dalam masyarakat kita dari segi agama, bangsa, rupa, dan kita mahu promote lah. We should take care of each other. Bukan sekadar dari segi berbilang agama, kelainan lain agama, lain bangsa, tapi lain dari segi keupayaan.
Yes.
Mereka yang kurang upaya juga. Dan hari ni satu lagi topik berat ke?
Topik besar.
Besar. Bincangkan tentang social and emotional development. Perkembangan sosial dan emosi. Anak ke ibu?
Jom kita bincang.
Kita bincang sama-sama.
Yes.
Hari ini di studio saya yang selalunya dari Kota Kinabalu. Didi di studio hari ini.
Selamat pulang.
Kita ada Nori.
Hai, Assalamualaikum.
Desri.
Hai, salam sejahtera.
Dan SK.
Apa khabar?
Hari ini kita kurang seorang. Tak apa, daripada 5 masih ada lagi 4.
Yes.
Anik tidak dapat bersama kita. Tapi kita teruskan jugalah. Sebab episod satu seminggu mesti kita hasilkan, insyaAllah.
Yes, insyaAllah.
So topik hari ni working on social emotional development. Okay, I baca sikit lah apa maksud dia. Okay, social development refers to a child's ability to create and sustain meaningful relationship with adults and other children. So hubungan sosial lah dengan kanak-kanak, dengan dewasa. Maksudnya walaupun anak bukan sekadar dengan kawan-kawan sebaya, tapi dengan dewasa, ibu bapa, guru-guru. Kemudian emotional development pula is a child's ability to express, recognize and manage his or her emotions, as well as respond appropriately to others' emotion. Melahirkan perasaan, boleh tunjuk apa perasaan, boleh kenal perasaan, maksudnya kalau nampak orang tu marah ke, sedih ke, pada diri sendiri dan juga pada orang lain lah, perasaan sendiri dan perasaan orang lain, dan juga boleh respond dengan respon yang sesuai, appropriately. Kalau orang sedih, respon macam mana? Kalau orang marah, respon macam mana? Itu development dia lah. So hari ni kita nak bincang apa yang ibu, dalam kita konteks ni kita sebagai ibu lah, ibu boleh buat untuk membantu perkembangan sosial dan emosi anak-anak neurodivergent. Dan di sini saya nak so that everybody is clear that when we share our context mostly on our children yang autistic. Tapi applicable juga sebenarnya. Banyak benda yang kita belajar applicable untuk anak-anak lain juga, bukan hanya kepada anak-anak autistik. Jadi kan?
Correct.
Jadi kita nak mulakan dengan macam mana nak membina hubungan. Bila kita nak develop tu, mestilah bila emosi, dia bukan emosi sendiri, emosi orang lain juga. Bila kata social, dia tak boleh social berseorangan.
Betul.
Jadi kita nak bincang tentang building connection, membina perhubungan. Kita mulakan dengan Desiree.
Boleh. Thank you Didi. Memang saya suka sangat bincang tentang topik ni. Building connections. Kan? And it goes back to bila saya first diagnose, anak saya first dapat diagnosis. Kan? And if we talk about social emotional development, kita lihat balik diagnosis autism, the criteria, dua antara kriteria tersebut has the word social in it. Social interaction, social communication. So memang first thing kita kena acknowledge, ini memang menjadi satu cabaran lah. So building connection ni bagi saya is the first step. And bila anak saya first diagnosed with autism, memanglah sebagai ibu yang baru kepada autism, baca segala jenis intervention untuk kanak-kanak dengan autism. Something didn't sit well with me dengan banyak approaches. A lot of the approaches didn't sit well with me sebab one of the main things that I read about then was how to redirect or stop stimming. Kan? Tetapi bila anak saya stim, dia sangat happy. And in my instinct told me, kalau sesuatu boleh buat seseorang tu sangat happy, sangat joyful, apa salahnya?
Kan emosi dia waktu ketika tu.
Yeah, he's happy. He was steaming, flapping, spinning, playing with his cars happily. Dia bukan cederakan sesiapa, cederakan dirinya, tak ada. And so eventually, it led me to search for approaches that look at steaming from a different perspective. So, saya jumpa this approach called Sunrise dan saya baca buku Autism Breakthrough by Ron Kaufman, di mana they talk about building connections where they define orang yang ada autism, mereka lebih suka hidup dalam dunia mereka tersendiri. And as we know, a lot of our children, especially when they are younger, memang they tend to isolate themselves, they like to play on their own, kan? So the premise is they are very happy in their own world, and because of the sensory processing challenges, memang dunia kita ni sangat menakutkan kepada diorang. Lampu yang terang, loud noises, sensory overload, and then on top of it, we keep telling them, stop spinning, stop flapping, but that is the only thing keeping them calm, right? To self-regulate. So based on this book, Ron Kaufman says, when they steam, we join them sebab that is our bridge into their world. So if we want to build a connection, kita kena masuk ke dunia mereka terlebih dahulu, and one of the methods is to join their steaming, kan? And join bukan as a method. A lot of people ask me, oh, so meaning you imitate, you copy je lah. For me, it's not imitating. Kita harus menghayati the experience. So if they are flapping, cuba bayangkan what actually is the sense that they are getting when they are flapping. Then kita boleh faham their sensory profile. Actually, walaupun it sounds very simplistic, flap with them to go into their world and then slowly build their trust and bring them out. It sounds very easy, but the joining is beyond clinical. You have to fully menghayati the joining.
No, I think it's macam kalau kita bersama dengan kawan rapat kita kan. Ada
Yes.
orang menyanyi
Sangat,
lah, terseronok. You can finish each other sentences.
Exactly.
So kadang-kadang semua menyanyi sama-sama.
Kalau
Kadang-kadang
pergi konsert,
kita
tak
macam,
tak?
exactly. Ataupun kita tak adalah macam ni. And of course like macam kadang-kadang take turn pula sebab kita tahu lagu tu. Macam,
Exactly.
so it's, I think if you accept that it is something that is more, that word connection is super important.
Yes.
And then also kita hendak bersama dengan orang tu. Then if you look at it that way, then you will know what to do.
Exactly.
If you look at it that way, you will know whether you are supposed to imitate ke, do your own version ke,
Yes.
sekali. You know, I mean,
Yep.
you have to, it's like you have to have a feel for it lah.
Betul.
Which you can. Sebab kita pernah buat ni dengan orang lain, tapi mungkin kita belum buat secara aktiviti ni dengan khususnya.
Yes.
Right? But
Sebenarnya memang
yeah,
kita
you
buat
can.
benda ni. So imagine, tak payah imagine. Cuba kenang balik to those who dah berkahwin. Bila you were dating your husband or your significant other. Kan? Takkan if you know your significant other or the person that you like tak suka air, takkan you nak bawa dia pergi swimming. Betul tak? Or you know the person doesn't like coffee. Would you take them to Starbucks on a date? Takut kucing. Takut kucing. Takut
Ada
kucing.
cerita ni.
Yes, you wouldn't bring them to a cat playground if they takut kucing. Then you would do things, and a lot of times kita akan cuba menghayati benda yang mereka suka. So katakan dia suka, I don't know, the Twilight series collection of books. You might even take the time to read the book so you can connect. Betul tak? Maybe it's not the best example.
Sorry,
I'm
Desiree. I
a
tengah
Twilight
bayangkan
fan.
Nara now. You know your husband is very tall, quite a quiet, serious guy, and I just had a flash of him reading about Edward and Bella. Sorry.
Special shout out. No, I didn't make him read the books. Although I love it, I didn't make him read the books. Tapi dia adalah tengok the movies with me lah.
Dia macam cadangkan that kalau orang nak menambah hati Desiree patut baca buku Twilight lah. Tapi terlambat kan sebab sudah
Terlambat.
berpunya.
Yes.
Too late.
This is
Too late.
Yeah. Actually sebenarnya I think for anak-anak autisma kami memang dia bukan naturally senang untuk bersosial. That's why connection tu is the one fundamentally is that safety
Yes.
to learn, sebenarnya what we don't may not be alerted, socialization ni memang is learned, kan? That's why
Untuk semua orang.
untuk semua, ke semua,
sebenarnya.
ke semua.
Mungkin lebih senang untuk orang yang biasa, yang typical.
Betul. Ya.
Tetapi memang masih perlu dibelajar kan.
Betul.
Yeah.
And that's why when the connection is there, that safety to learn by kami mencontohi, in that sense we need to encourage parents not to be shy about the not typical behaviour tu.
Yes.
What you said about
Yeah.
kalau dia jump up and down, flapping ke, memang kami segan kan. And that stops us to mencontohikan. We stop them as opposed to go into their world to play with them. I think we had a chat about that before.
Yes.
If I recall my own experience about using the definasi of autism, where the diet of social communication is a challenge, what we did with in our family was very early on. Both our kids, Aaron and Joshua, I intentionally had both of them do social communication learning together. Yeah, because the motivation at that time, motivasinya is they can main abang adik. Yeah, that learned an imitation. What Nori mentioned about is in that natural context and all the time. Yeah. So the social communication, modeling, how to play gets more opportunity. Kan? And in fact, we were just chatting, both the boys, throughout perhaps until 10 or 12 years old, if you remember now from very young, we immerse. Bagi dia opportunity bermain. First between the two of them, and then inviting larger group of friends or new
So
people.
tak adalah Joshua yang mungkin lebih memerlukan, dia tidaklah terasa terasing.
Betul.
Dan
Yes.
sebenarnya kita mengiktiraf bahawa abangnya Aaron sungguh pun tak ada diagnosis apa-apa.
Yeah.
Sepatutnya mempunyai kebolehan dan kemahiran itu juga. So
Yeah.
might as well buat dengan adik dia sekali.
Yeah.
So you
So
did
we-
it together.
Correct. And
Right,
we always
okay.
encourage, even at Oasis, kalau we do any intervasi, social communication or play based, is really to imitate from the typical children. Kan?
Yeah.
And this, I think, is our general life of taking care of our children. We give them exposure, mirror, model, ya, bagi dia contoh-contoh yang dia boleh mempelajari. Ya.
I nak tambah sikit. Ini bila kita cakap pasal social, kita tak boleh lari daripada cakap tentang bahasa.
Yes.
Ramai ibu bapa anak-anak autistik cakap kenapa anak mereka lebih mudah belajar bahasa Inggeris. Bila bercakap lebih selesa dengan English. Ramai cakap sebab bahasa Inggeris is senang. Kalau 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, like the syllable is shorter and stuff. But sekarang ni I can see that speech therapist pun dah mula cakap benda yang I dah cakap lama dah. I cakap macam ni. That was my opinion at that time. But now people picking up jugalah. The reason kenapa anak-anak autistik mudah yang bukan, maksudnya di rumah tidak menggunakan bahasa Inggeris, mak ayah guna bahasa Melayu, tapi tiba-tiba dia bila dia mula bercakap, dia nak cakap Inggeris. Dia lebih faham, lebih mudah kan. It's actually because tadi kita cakap pasal building connection, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Bila anak autistik ni masa kecil, dia susah kan nak berhubung. Kalau kita sebelum kita belajar, sebelum dia dapat diagnosis, kita pun tak tahu, kita pun tak ada cuba extra effort ke apa untuk membantu kan nak build this connection. Dia banyak tengok TV, mungkin sama banyak dengan kanak-kanak tipikal, tengok TV, iPad ke apa. But the connection tu dia lebih mudah build dengan benda yang static. Dengan TV, dengan iPad yang selalunya dengan YouTube English kan.
Content is in
Lebih baik.
English.
Is in English.
banyak.
Jadi
Ya,
dia
lebih banyak. Dan
sebab
menarik
kita-
pula
ya.
tu.
menarik kan. Dia lagi cepat, fast pace.
Disney kan, kesemuanya,
Disney,
yang
kan.
kartunnya
Mickey
biasanya.
Mouse and everything. So sebab itulah dia lebih mudah dapat ni. Tapi kita sekarang tahulah bila anak-anak tu dah mula pergi sekolah, kita pun lebih banyak bercakap dalam bahasa selain daripada bahasa Inggeris. Kita boleh nampaklah improvement. Kurangkan dengan gadget yang dia boleh pilih, dia dah selesa dengan bahasa Inggeris, of course dia akan terus pilih bahasa Inggeris lah, content bahasa Inggeris kan. Jadi connection tu kalau tak ada, maka dia akan, the development of the language berdasarkan connection kepada apalah, kepada mak dia ke ataupun kepada YouTube. Atau then kemudian macam family saya sekarang ni dah selesa banyak guna bahasa Inggeris, tapi saya taklah 100% sebab kita nak lah, kita dia duduk di Malaysia, kita nak dia faham lah bahasa Melayu dan cuba praktis sebanyak mana yang boleh. Bagi dia peluang, masih lagi pergi kelas bahasa Melayu. Ada masa kadang mama nak usik dia buat tak faham, ataupun bagi arahan macam bahasa Melayu, and then macam bila dia buat muka tak faham, kita ulang lagi sekali. Kadang-kadang marah jugalah dia, macam English please. Tapi kita tak nak jadikan hanya kerana dia suka bahasa Inggeris, kita pun guna bahasa Inggeris sebab senang nak communicate, jadi bahasa Melayu tu asing. Tak boleh lah sebab kita duduk di Malaysia kan.
Biasakan ya.
So actually bila our kids are exposed to the language, memang mereka akan faham. So for example, in my home, semua orang bercakap dalam bahasa Inggeris. But the center that my son goes to, memang teachers communicate with him in English, tetapi majority orang Melayu to each other memang they speak in Malay, bahasa Melayu. So anak saya memang faham. So sometimes certain things when I say, so benda macam makan, mandi, dia faham. So even when I speak in full on Malay on the phone ke apa, dia boleh faham. He can understand what I'm saying, right? But before I hand it back to Didi, one last point I want to talk about building connection. Kepentingan building connection ni actually, if you ask me, is to gain their trust. Sebab bila kita dah gain the trust of Acha, ini tak kira whether you are ibu ke, bapa ke, family member, teacher, therapist, semua. To gain their trust, you need to build the connection. Bila mereka dah trust us, it's easier to build the connection. And kalau dari segi konteks mengajar, that is when they slowly will be in that green light to learn. Sebab kita kena settle dulu all the challenges that they have, whether it's sensory, overload, kan. So by building that connection, kita lebih fahami apa masalahnya sebenarnya. Right? I know it sounds very crass when I say apa masalahnya, right? But what is the challenge that they are facing? How do we overcome it? But through bonding, and then the next step is only when they can learn.
And also respect.
Yes, exactly. Respect.
So the underlying signs of that connection is back to safety.
Yes.
And safety is, we use the word regulation. Because kalau dalam emosi ni, social emotional ability, ini complex. It's the complex part of your brain. So it goes back again to connection, safety, dan bila dia safe, then they can draw on their socialization skill. Yeah. So again, that word connection, the deeper part is safety.
Safety. Yep, I like that.
Because again, we have to recognize that socialization is very complex, even for typical adults, kan? You have to read lah body language, you have to look at the muka, right? Whether smiling ke, the eye contact ke, is very, very complex. So, but it is possible. It is a learned behavior, and in social thinking that we conduct, that is the science by Michelle Garcia winner. They now don't refer it to social skill because they now recognize this is a competence. Kemahirannya tak bersama dengan kecekapannya. It is complex, and what they want to recognize is individually, any individual memang ada emosinya, but they need to refine against their ability. As opposed to we may want to make the other person learn the skill. They have no context. So kalau it is against my emotion, I feel safe. This is how I behave. Like I need to do this to feel safe. That's my communication. That is when they learn to be safer and then go into their world before you teach them what you expect socially.
Yeah.
Social is culture. It is learned. It is an expectation of a certain behavior, kan?
Yes.
Ya,
So,
itunya.
can I ask a question?
Boleh.
Yeah, so saya nak tanya, kedua-dua SK dan Desiree dalam menyebut tentang topik ni yang begitu penting, both of you have repeated or talked about certain things that are important to you both. And I know that when you both do this, it's because you feel very strongly about it, you know. So you have shared the point about how, you know, this ability to manage social situations and all that is a competency. And that word, I think that word alone dah take us to the point of understanding this is really, really needed, right? It's even more than just a skill. And then of course for you speak about, you know, stimming is something, you know, is a topic that is very close to your heart because there are a lot of things that are attached to it that was connected to Hans, but also your own learning, right? And it was very significant when you realized what you realized. So if we accept that connection, which is one of the needs of social emotional development, is really, really important. I would like to maybe ask for one or two more examples of how we can do this with a neurodivergent child, knowing that it's so hard, you know. So for example, we have heard from adults who can speak very well, so they can communicate universally and let us know that even though they are very they are independent, these are working adults. Some of them work in very high performance needs jobs. You know, there are doctors, for example, and they have said even for them it's a struggle. I would just like to hear one or two more examples from anybody else apart from the jumping in, playing in, making them feel that you are part of it and all that. Like, what other tips maybe or strategies we can suggest? Because again, I feel sometimes that you have that, you know, parent-child. We always talk about how, oh, don't worry, there's a natural bond, and you know, kita kan mak dia. Of course lah kita tahu apa nak buat, you know, things like that. Tapi kita tahu antara cabaran yang terjadi pada ibu bapa yang mempunyai anak neurodivergent, dia tak rasa dia boleh connect dengan anak dia. Dia rasa terasing kepada anak dia. Dia rasa anak dia mungkin dia tak tahu pun apa yang anak dia tengah melalui sebab tak ada that connection and that bond. So if we can maybe just share one or two more examples, I think that would be really good also for our audience that maybe some of you have not mentioned before.
I
They
have
a
an
wealth of
example.
experience, right?
I mean, I see where you're coming from. I think we want some tangible examples. Maybe I can share. So mine is from a very young person perspective. Hans was 4 when I did this, kan?
So he's a kid,
It was a kid, but it was sort of a breaking point for me to realize the power of joining. To understand why he was doing what he was doing. So we used to have a TV cabinet with a TV just above it, and dia suka duduk atas TV because he was very small, so he climb on the cabinet. Cabinet memang is quite steady lah. Dia takkan pecah, right? And he would go and put his face to the TV, kan? And you know, we tried because memang is TV, and a kid's face on the TV memang is not encouraged lah. Who wants your child to be putting the face on TV?
Sayang TV ke sayang anak? At the moment kan?
The TV was mounted to the wall, by the way. So and there was a casing. So
Jangan tanya soalan tu dalam time-time World Cup dan sebagainya. Okay.
So it was very secure. It was very secure. The TV couldn't fall off the wall.
Okay.
So what I did was, and here's a disclaimer: no one was hurt in this story.
Okay.
My furniture is intact till today. So I thought, okay, what is he doing up there? Muka dia dekat TV, and then he's looking, and he looks so like mesmerized, kan? So saya panjat lah atas the cabinet. What he was doing, and he could see, kan? So he's on one side, I'm on one side.
Detektif ni.
So I put my cheek against the TV, and then I realised sebenarnya when we talk about sensory, some of our children crave the sensory input. He is a sensory seeker. Then if you really look,
Was the TV vibrating?
no, you can see the tiny
colours.
pixels.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what he was looking at.
Okay.
So when I did it a couple of times, and I'm like, oh my God, Hans, I know what. So I would talk to him. I see now how fascinating it is, but you know what? Come, let's go sit on the sofa. So we did it a couple of times. And then he started joining me. I would jump up. I would say, hey, come, let's go down. Then he would come sit on the sofa with
So
me.
it's like, I'm going to join you. Now you join me pula.
Yes, so
Dia
after
jadi
a
geng
couple,
dia.
Okay.
after a couple of times, I dah tak payah panjat already. I just say, hey Hans, come, let's sit on the sofa and do something else. He would just come down, and eventually he stopped doing it.
Because dia dah nampak mak dia sanggup buat benda-benda ke apa-apa yang dia minat bersama dengan dia. So dia pun okay lah. Kalau mak nak minta I buat something else, okay, I'll join you.
Yes, absolutely.
I think it's the natural process of friendship lah, developing friendship. Kenapa kita buat podcast?
Yeah.
Kenapa kita berlima? Start dengan masing-masing semangat kan? Jadi advocate, kita been speaking about this in many platforms.
Yes.
So and then we get united and do this. But with our children, mungkinlah minat tu tak sama, tapi kita cuba. Kita kena jugalah the interest. We have to show interest. Walaupun sebenarnya tak minat, tapi kenalah anak kita kan.
No, that's true. That's actually advice untuk semua ibu bapa dengan anak-anak yang apa-apa pun. You have to
Find that common ground.
Make some effort lah. Yalah, mungkin sebab dia era dia tak sama dengan era kita. Tapi kita kena menunjukkan.
And I think Nori does this too. You
know?
you play Minecraft or some video games, right?
We had
With
to learn, Papa and I had to learn how to play Minecraft. So we have our family world.
Yes.
Tapi kita,
You do whatever it takes
yes,
to build those
you do.
connections. Yeah.
You do what, and then sometimes you will discover that apa-apa yang anak you minat mungkin you akan minat juga.
Kita cuba.
Actually,
Yeah, that's
anak kita dulu yang minat certain music, certain things, lepas tu tiba-tiba mak pun boleh terjebak. So, but no, that's great, right? So, macam kesanggupan kita untuk berkawan dengan seseorang. And then also like you said about the dating analogy before kan.
Yes.
When you sanggup, so I mean bila dah suka or whatever, you semangat right to do that thing. So like
Anak kita
you
kena
have to
suka lah.
you kena
Motivasi
kita
tu.
pun nak kena
Anak
buatlah
kita.
effort untuk
Yes.
anak kita kan.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
Let me give you another example, Nuri,
Yeah,
of
please.
the challenge of this social awareness ke ability. I think this one ramai ibu bapa akan recognize.
Okay.
The child that selalunya kalau cikgu tanya question, always answer. Always answer without giving chance
To someone else.
Kawan-kawan lain.
to kawan-kawan
Yeah.
dia.
Okay.
Can you imagine how many friends they will not have? Kerana tak popular, kerana dia selalu me, and dia will jawab terus kan? Itu situasi is quite common in learned social behaviour. Bagilah can lain orang. Yeah, that I think many of us experience and our children experience. And you may get a little note from cikgu. Oh, your child need to give their friends
A turn.
turn taking.
turns.
So turn taking actually is a valuable social, valued social behavior, kan? Not in your face lah. A little bit like when you describe because of their attraction to something. The other situation, as you were sharing us, remembering, the individual that goes like that in your eye. And that's another example, kan? They may see something really interesting. It might be your earring, and they are there straight away before asking. So these
They're
are
very intense about it.
That's right. They
Yeah.
are intense. I love that word, kan? Because they are straight on, kan? They are more linear. They are very authentic. That they just love what it is, and they may grab things from you. That is the
So how did you teach, or was that something that you had faced? Like,
yes, indeed. It was
Yeah.
that school thing, right? So again, the modeling, the conversation is sharing that there are other children who will enjoy also like you. So try or count. Please wait. Yeah. So it is a process. It doesn't happen so quickly.
It's also sort of teaching them to regulate,
Yeah.
to sort of wait their turn in a
That's
way.
right. Take turn
And humility
taking.
as well, I think.
So this is typically in when you are in kindergarten, you actually learn to take
turns.
turns.
Yeah.
That's why learning social skills is heavily learned during playtime. Kan?
Yes, that's true.
And playtime is
Sebab
so
natural
important.
setting.
It is a natural
motivasi pun ada.
Absolutely.
Kan?
Yup.
Okay.
Itu dia.
Oleh itu saya ingin meminta maaf kepada kawan-kawan sekolah rendah saya kerana mungkin
Oh my god, Didi, you were the one. Cikgu saya. Were you that one?
cikgu tanya je, tak ada orang pun. So minta maaf kawan-kawan. Dan dengan itu, let's take a break and kembali selepas ni. Selamat kembali ke podcast kita family. Kita dah bincangkan tentang the importance of building connection, hubungan dalam membantu perkembangan sosial dan emosi anak-anak kita. So kita nak bincanglah lagi peranan ibu ataupun bapa dan ahli keluarga terdekat dalam membantu mereka dari segi emosi. So kita ada term yang dipanggil co-regulation. Co-regulation ni maksudnya apa ya? Macam kita regulate sama-sama, regulate mengawal daripada dalam keadaan tak terkawal, dial up kepada okey. Jadi macam mana tu kalau kita sebagai ibu bantu anak kita? Nori boleh share sikit? Sikit je. Tak adalah.
Okay, maybe mungkin sikit sebab secara jujurnya memang topik ni adalah sesuatu yang saya terasa berat nak cakap sebenarnya. Sebab kalau ada antara benda yang saya sebenarnya sangat-sangat ingin tahu pada tahap yang lebih awal, you know, if I could think about what I know now, you know, berbanding dengan masa dulu. Ini adalah antara topik-topik yang penting lah. Kepentingan untuk membantu anak kita mempunyai kebolehan berkaitan dengan emosi dan sosial. Especially bab emosi ni. I think kalau kita tengok pada episod yang sebelum dari ni pun, kami berlima ni kerap menyebut tentang kepentingan untuk melihat kepada bab emosi ni dan tidak terlalu menekankan dan fikirkan tentang akademik. We speak about this a lot because I think dalam budaya kita, masyarakat kita di Malaysia ni, we always say as Asian
parenting.
Somehow we really think about that academic area of knowledge, kan, ilmu tu dianggap sangat-sangat penting. And then we cannot help it. But we have that kind of expectation kepada semua anak-anak kita. Tak kira lah kalau anak kita sebenarnya berlainan keupayaan, right? So I think that was something we didn't really know also, that I wish we had known better. The emotional regulation. So why do I bring it up like that? It's because going back to co-regulation, iaitu keadaan di mana seseorang kalaulah dia tidak dapat mengawal emosinya, okay? And then ini bukan saja untuk anak-anak yang kecil ya, tapi untuk sesiapa pun kadang-kadang perlu dibantu oleh orang yang lain. So ada beberapa cara yang lazim boleh digunakan kalau kita tengok konteks ibu bapa dan anak. So as a mother, actually all of us have done some co-regulation for our children. It's easy to think about it bila anak kita baby. Okay. Bila anak kita nangis atau kita tengok dia gelisah, kita dokong and then ayun-ayun, sometimes you sing a song or you are moving with the child, right? Maybe a baby is not so easy to move. That's why kita dulu memang daripada dulu kita tahu di mana-mana budaya serata dunia there's something special about buaian, right? A swing.
Yeah.
But you don't have a swing or the child is not yet able to swing, as an infant, kalau bayi tu kita lah yang ayun because we are, we're carrying our child. Yeah, dodoi. So itu antara one way of co-regulating, helping your child. And of course, as a baby, babies don't know how to co-regulate yet. In fact, young children also, and this is something that also, ini kalau typically developing child pun akan mengambil masa. So dalam anak kita yang kalau yang neurodivergent memang mempunyai cabaran dari segi ni dan dia tidak semudahnya untuk belajar cara untuk mengawal emosi diri. And to be fair, if we think about it, I'm sure di antara kita semua mengenali orang yang mungkin dewasa pun yang tak berapa pandai mengawal emosi.
Yes.
So not all of us learn how to do this well, right? So it's very, very important as you are trying to teach your child, your neurodivergent child, that the close family members, especially the parents, you step in while you are teaching. That whole process is also happening perhaps, whether it is step by step that you've learned that they need this, whether you get help and support from a therapist or a school. While you are doing that, you will probably need to assist in co-regulation as they are learning the skills. So there are things that we can do. In fact, KFM does it all the time with each other.
Yep, the
We
breathing.
breathe together. Sometimes when we feel we see one person is nervous or whatever, but then we don't just assume that there's only that one person we have to take care of. We just come together and we all just benefit from breathing together, right? So this is something you can do with your child. So for example, breathe in and out slowly. We know the power of the pause. We know breathing. So it's something that you can do together with your child, as opposed to just telling your child, okay, deep breath, count to 10. So rather than bagi instruction, bagi arahan,
Do it
kita model. Yes, kita buat dulu. Kita buat dulu dan kita buat bersama-sama. Now the trick is kita kena buat ni dan cuba mengajar kebolehan untuk ni, even for the co-regulation part, kita belum lagi nak cuba mengajar dia bagaimana nak buat secara diri dia sendiri, tapi kita patut praktis dalam keadaan di mana semua okey, kita semua tenang,
kita okey dulu.
jangan kita tunggu bila time stress baru kita nak apa yang I belajar gitu, okay, let's try and do it now. No, the brain doesn't learn very well when it's already stressed, right? We know this is brain science. Is this the frontal cortex, depan ni yang sepatutnya belajar and all the rational thinking and stuff like that, it shuts down, tells the back of the brain to just go into survival mode. So when you're trying to teach something, so the tip also is practice and try to do this thing just as you play. So as you play, do some co-regulating kind of playing. So ajarlah macam mana nak counting, ajarlah macam mana nak buat deep breathing, and then there's so many cute things that you can do, right? Magic breaths that your daughters have done, or like square breathing. Square breathing is on our Instagram account, by the way. You can actually breathe with our post because we timed it, plugging our social media. But so this is something that thankfully we managed to do with our son Timur, but really he's struggling right now. Things are difficult for many reasons put all together. One of them is puberty. So ni dalam tahap-tahap dia dah nak mencapai this era remaja kita ni, ialah kita sebut time ni lah anak kita nak balik, and he's becoming dewasa. There's so many things going on, the biochemistry of the body, the changes, then he's often anxious. He's having a hard time. I really, really wish that we had spent more time on helping him build more skill connected to social emotional development for himself. Dia macam kurang tools. So I'm grateful that as a mother, he's he can still turn to me and I can be there for him. But I'm feeling right now that sometimes there's only just a few of us in the house that he can turn to, because dia kemahiran dan kebolehan dia dalam hal ini tak mencukupi. So dalam keadaan di mana sangat banyak stres atau tekanan dan input, dan dia memang menghadapi beberapa masalah, dia susah nak membantu diri dia sendiri. So dia sungguh pun dah umur 15 tahun sangat bergantung kepada orang lain, tapi at the same time also tak dengan semua. Now if we had, katalah kita dah lebih menekankan kepentingan untuk membelajar kemahiran ni, I don't know, maybe it would have been a little bit better, or all of us as a family together we understood its importance, then maybe kita semua make a bit more of that effort, right? So as a result, now actually very recently I had a chance to speak to an acquaintance, wondering about anak dia. Dia rasa mungkin anak dia memerlukan diagnosis. Dia rasa anak dia agak berbeza, dan dia tanyalah mungkin mana nak dapat diagnosis and what can we do now. So dia menceritakanlah anak dia macam struggle with the academic learning, tak boleh fokus, and then di tadika dia, cikgu mempunyai ramai pelajar yang lain tak dapat give him attention, dia pun rasa terasing. Lepas tu dia pun sebut anak dia cakap pun macam tak berapa fasih untuk tahap umur dia. Dia boleh bercakap tetapi dia macam enggan untuk berkomunikasi dengan lebih. Tak tahu kalau enggan atau tidak boleh, kita pun tak berapa pasti kan. Ni cerita seorang ayah cerita dengan saya. So tengah tunggulah dapat appointment, dan dia kata okay, maybe we can do some screening or whatever before the full assessment, right? It takes time. So I told him, I said, sementara nak tunggu diagnosis ada ke tidak, kita tak tahu. Sementara kita nak tunggu apakah bantuan, sokongan, terapi, intervensi yang mungkin khusus dan dapat membantu anak dia. I said, what is the one thing you can do right now? You just connect with your son.
Yeah.
Yes.
Connect dulu, just this is something you can do. Just give him so much love. Just say it's okay, and just you can even talk to him. We presume competence of a certain level, of course, right? And that whole heart, you always speak about the heart, connecting to the heart, and say, because think about it, you are worried about your son. I think he's worried for himself, and I think he's worried about what's going on with his, family. That I'm sure he doesn't feel good also that these things are happening, right? So the dad was like nodding his head. So I said, just spend more time telling him you love him and that it's okay, and that whatever it is happens, mommy and daddy are here. We're gonna figure out how to help you, but it's okay. Yeah. At the moment, it's okay. Right? And that one you can control. That one you can do as a parent. You don't need a special skill for that. And it doesn't matter lepas ni what therapy or apa the diagnosis. Everybody needs to know that they have people who love them, people who they can count on, and that safety and security. So you see, it's difficult for me. It's something I really, really wish we had spent more time on with Timur.
Can I just say something to you, Nori? I hear a bit of regret, right? And we love you. We all love you. We all got you. I think all of us have some regret bringing up all of our children, and don't go there. You did the best you could with what you knew at the
You're still doing
time,
the best.
and it's never too late. I always
No,
talk
that's
about
true. It's never too late.
Yeah,
it's
never
not too
too
late.
late.
No, I'm not sitting in the
Yeah,
regret.
so-
I'm taking my own advice and I give myself grace. So it's okay. So what I'm doing now is I take that as learning, and this is what I'm able to share with somebody else.
Absolutely.
And it makes me, I think we are more determined now to see what we can do to help him. And then, and helping him is then helping the others in the process. So it's okay. I tak adalah sampai tahap regret. So thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate all of you.
Yeah.
And this is why we have each other, right?
Yes,
so
exactly.
it's not. I'm okay with it, but I think it is while it is not as strong as regret, I think I want to acknowledge it is very important. So this is maybe my way of doing it. to share, to tone. If one day I get to, tell my son, gosh, I'm sorry, I didn't know better. And
You
it's
can still
okay,
tell him now.
Yeah,
You
yes,
can
I
tell
do.
him now.
I do.
And Nori,
But,
my dearest Nori, and remaja ni, the brain is being rewired.
yeah.
The
Pruning, kan?
the hormones are raging, and I believe that the difficult situation right now will come to a different settled level. And just like Anit say, at different times and different moments, the urgency of certain type of intervention, support looks different.
Yes.
I truly believe, and I know you are a very, very strong learner and surrounded by very supported family.
Yes, they are very
And
supportive.
that emotion that you share with us, thank you so much. Because whatever knowledge kan kami bincang dulu, knowledge-nya ada, tapi the lived experience memang is part of that resilience that we'll draw on our pool of love. Yeah. And coming back to that regulation is demonstrating that love, the connection, and you are now demonstrating that co-regulation that we are now discussing with Timor. And just extending that is that showing in context, in situation, when Timor is upset, you are there for them. Now that is the social regulation, showing them that when there's something that they can communicate, something that's uncomfortable, that regulation that you are providing right now is, I'm here.
Yeah.
And I'm here repeatedly, kan? Despite however kecoh, whatever the situation, you are now demonstrating that co-regulation. And in the social perspective, actually, is as we speak about social need for regulation for social ability, is to break it down for them. When you are upset, I am here. That is the expectation, is still part of that. You are now part of that very challenging social communication modeling. That whilst it is not what I expect, I'm still here for you. And that communication, sama ada verbally, I love you, I sayang, it's okay. That is co-regulation.
Yes.
That you are currently demonstrating.
Yeah. No, I am so grateful for that.
Yes.
It's just that it's like, if we understand that it's a priority, then we get more people to be involved with this, right?
And this is
so
beautiful.
It was like, oh, only a few people know how to co-regulate with him. And then so, that's why there's it's a struggle.
So the societal
We have to
embracing,
learn again now.
the societal embracing, this is the appreciation. Kan? Dari awareness, okay, we know there's something called social communication challenge. That was the awareness. And then we accept, okay, that's what they have. The appreciation is this step. That, this is how it really looks like.
Exactly.
And we will co-regulate. That's the action.
Yeah.
Currently, it's in action mode.
No, it definitely wasn't an appreciation so much. And I have to tell you, this is true confessions. I had people who also said, by the way, there were people who also said, right? This is a big thing. Maybe spend more time in it. And, we did, but I think, right? Like, not enough, you
No, it's-
know.
I don't think that,
I think it's
it's
in
not
progress.
enough, no.
Actually, I
It
would like to
happened
say
not
in
because,
progress.
Yeah, not because you haven't done enough in the past.
Yeah.
This is a new phase.
That's right.
And we
The
have to
intensity-nya
acknowledge-
tak sama,
Oh.
kan?
You know, a lot of
Ah.
pediatricians,
You guys are really
pediatricians
great.
tell us,
Thank
right?
you.
And we've all been to all these talks by pediatricians, developmental peds. We know that the turning point is puberty. Not only for our neurodivergent kids, but for a lot of kids. And whether we know it or we don't know it, a lot of children are facing hormonal imbalance at a very young age.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Yeah.
you know, when
And
you put
puberty
all that,
happens sooner now.
and puberty
Yeah.
happens,
Puberty happens
sooner as
so,
well.
Yeah,
And
on
so
average.
my point is, even if you had done the whole co-regulating
We don't
thing,
know, right?
Yep.
you
no,
don't,
or
you
like
will never know.
building more of the emotional regulation. I know.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
don't know. That's
So,
why,
yeah.
you know, Alhamdulillah,
We
I'm
get to
grateful.
remind
I'm
you.
not. Yeah, I'm not sitting.
Yeah.
Not sitting in that regret.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it is true that if your foundation is stronger in something,
Yes.
you have a better chance of holding on to it when the storms come.
That's right.
Right? So it's like and then if we think about that and understanding how the brain works, and this is maybe newer learning, right? That you have to feel safe.
Yeah.
You have to feel regulated. You have to whatever. That is the basic before all the other stuff happens.
Yeah.
And that was also later knowledge.
Yes.
So we're passing this on to everybody. Please
Yes.
don't let this be late knowledge for you.
Mhm.
Kita insyaAllah kita nak ibu bapa sekarang ni, especially yang baru dapat diagnosis, so baru tahu anak dia memerlukan sokongan tambahan ni dan perlu diajar dengan cara yang berbeza.
Yeah.
This part is very important.
Yeah.
And-
now we know because it is actually connected, by the way, to make some of you parents feel better. Ada kaitannya juga dengan akademik. Sebab kalau anak kita tak regulated, dia tak boleh belajar.
Betul.
Sungguh pun dia ada kapasiti untuk belajar. Bila dia tak tenteram, dia tak tenang, dia sedih, dia
Ya.
emosi dia tidak terkawal. That is the way the brain works. Dia tidak akan mampu belajar apa-apa pun sebenarnya.
Ya.
So you got to take care of that part first.
Indeed,
Please
indeed.
take care
Safety.
of that part. Have your child feel safe, secure, love, have somebody to trust, and not just 1 or 2, 3 people to trust.
Yeah.
You know, get everybody more involved in this, and your child really does feel more secure. It's connected to confidence, connected to self-esteem. Again, these are newer things kan. Kita baru belajar dulu. Ni pun antara dulu, you know, antara knowledge yang kita tak tahu before lah.
Terima
That one
kasih
is
SK
added
lah
knowledge.
yang bawa kan all this great
yang
information.
banyak membantu kita belajar as parents, as our own parent training. Thank you so much, kakak. Really.
You're most welcome, and I really want to pick up on what Desiree say. Sebenarnya, and what you said, Nori. Parents we equip, and there will be time when we need to draw from that tool.
Yeah.
Sebenarnya, Nori, I know you very well. You were equipping, and many parents are equipping, and we would like to encourage you. Don't worry if it seems too big, because that is the learning. Semasa you have the knowledge, it is the practice during the situation, you are already prepared. So learning with us now, we want to encourage you, and that overwhelming feeling will settle because you will start to draw more and more.
Yeah.
What you learn
That's true.
in any situation adds on, deepening that knowledge,
Oh my
and
God,
that
that's so true. Thank you for that.
that
reminder.
is it.
Betul.
That is
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So the intensity of the situation. So even when we, again, my dearest friend Peter Vermeulen, contextually,
Yes.
we can't just teach social skill. Tak boleh kemahiran sahaja. Right? It is in context. What is the situation? That is the social learning. What is an expected behavior,
And why does it matter?
and why does it matter?
So that's why
It must-
keadaan tu,
Yes.
situasi tu sangat penting, right? And that's why they say.
Exactly.
So he describes autism as context blindness. Such an interesting way of looking at it, right? So that's another way. Like we don't hear that description masa diagnosis. It's definitely not part of DSM-5. Tetapi it makes a lot of sense sebab dia tidak memahami situasi,
Yeah.
situasi sosial, situasi emosi.
So the
So that's
current
where the
context,
so-called blindness comes in.
the current context, semasanya dia dalam keadaan turning remaja. That is the context.
Yeah.
That everything is upside down. Kan? Even for our typical kids,
Yeah.
It's
socialization,
a long phase, can I tell you?
identity, semuanya masuk. And that's why the intensity is in context appropriate. Yeah.
I think cerita ni macam agak kompleks. Mungkin yang anak-anak keluarga yang masih kecil tu tak faham. Tapi ada cerita yang lebih straightforward. Yang mungkin bila dah faham ni boleh go back fahamkan cerita Nori tadi. Yang ni yang betul-betul straightforward co-regulation.
Okay.
There was one time my daughter yang nombor 2, yang anak nombor 1 memang kecil-kecil dulu selalu meltdown. So masa tu kita pun tak ada ilmu sangat apa, tak tahu macam nak handle. So lepas dia dah umur 5 tahun macam tu, everything dah settle. Dia dah tak ada lah nak meltdown, nak mengamuk apa semua. Tiba-tiba anak yang nombor 2 ni, masa tu dia dah umur 5 tahun, dia meltdown. Dia tak pernah meltdown tau. Selalunya kakak. So adik meltdown di tak payah sebut mall mana lah nanti macam So in the mall. So in the, dia mengamuk, nangis-nangis. Betul bila kita tenangkan pun macam dah tak boleh dah. And then dia punya apa?
Dan dia sebenarnya jarang meltdown.
Dia tak pernah.
Tak pernah. Tak pernah to having one in the mall.
Tak pernah kat
in a
rumah.
nice public place.
Yes.
Masa dia kecil kan, masa dia kecil, masa kakak dia selalu meltdown kan. Dia bila dia macam emosi terganggu, she would tell herself, it's okay, it's okay. She
self-regulate. Yeah.
So it's like
Masa
she
dia
knew
kecil.
how to self-regulate.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So bila
Alhamdulillah.
umur 5 tahun, dia meltdown, kita macam terkejut. Dia macam betul-betul ni. And then kita di kawasan, di tempat public, and masa tu umur 5 tahun kita boleh dukung lagi lah. So what we did, macam yang kita buat dengan kakak dulu, bila apa-apa jadi, we just bawa masuk kereta lah kan. Kita cakap safe space.
Yes.
Okay, kita bawa lah sebab dah tak boleh dah. Dan kita cakap pun, and dia pula jenis yang bila meltdown tu dia menjawab. Kakak dulu meltdown memang totally dah tak boleh dah, just cried and cried. Tapi dia menjawab. So macam it looks like macam, bukan, kita tak boleh kata dia rude, tapi intense lah. It was very intense incident. So we went into the car. At that time kan, parking kita pakai card lagi. Okay. So kita tak ada pakai touch and go. Jadi kita
ambil
perlu
tiket
lah. Tiket kita
have
kena
to
pergi
pay
bayar
at the
lah
machine kan.
So okay, kita masuk dalam kereta. Of course the plan lepas pergi shopping nak pergi makan. So bila dah mengamuk macam tu, dalam kereta nangis-nangis lagi apa semua tak boleh control. Apa kita decide? Nak balik lah. Dia balik. So my husband keluar daripada kereta dalam keadaan yang anak ni nangis-nangis lah dengan I kan. Dia keluar kereta untuk bayar lah kan,
Tiket.
kan?
Parking tiket lah.
So
Sebab
dia nak balik lah kan. So dia keluar, dia tutup je pintu. My daughter turn to me, it's okay mama, stop crying, like it never happened. I cakap kan macam as if my husband keluar bawa hantu.
Wow.
Gangguan kan.
Yeah.
So bila my husband,
Like she needed the time maybe? Is it what
it was
It's the space.
at that moment the door of the car tutup je, my husband dekat luar tutup je, terus okay. She turned to me, mama it's okay. Lepas tu bila my husband balik kan, masa tu kita baru belajar tahu co-regulation. I dah tahu, and I of course dah cerita lah. I dah cerita dengan my husband, okay, this is new topic. I learn from Center Oasis Place. I pergi workshop yang sponsor I pergi kan. Sponsor I pergi for 2 days. So I share lah kan.
Ada knowledge
Kita present lah balik whatever we learn kan. Lepas I tanya dia apa tau, were you angry? Were you upset? I tanya my husband. And then he said, yeah, because I never expected this to happen. Like again lah. Like anak ni pula.
Yes.
Kecewa ada.
Kecewa ada.
Understandable.
Marah ada.
Yeah.
Sedih ada.
Tapi of course sebab dia dah berjalan and dia dah balik, the intensity of his emotion was not as strong as when before he left the car lah. Dia dah okay lah kan, dia dah jalan.
Yes.
So and then sebab dah bayar tiket, kita kena balik lah, tak boleh lah masuk masuk balik nak pergi dinner. You needed to go out lah. But it shows at the moment kan, you dah ada connection dengan anak you, and anak you bila marah and dapat rasa orang keliling marah, tak membantu. Dia tak boleh
Yeah.
nak tenang kan.
Yeah.
Tak boleh nak achieve
Yes.
ketenangan tu bila ada orang lain marah.
Yeah.
Anak kita sangat sensitif
Sensitive.
sebenarnya.
So what you
the
demonstrate,
neurodivergents are often very, very sensitive.
actually what you demonstrated there is co-regulation kerana masa dia di mall tu, it's just overwhelming.
Yeah.
And what Desiree was saying, by going into her world, willing to not go and continue to have your plan to makan or be out, going back into her safety space was the actual demonstration.
Tapi dia frust because actually at that time she wanted to get 6 My Little Pony. Kan ada
Yes.
banyak. She
Yes.
wanted to have like all.
Yes.
So we just bought like a few.
Mm.
And she nak semua. I wanted all.
Yes.
But
So
that's
it
the
was like, was it a tantrum? Was it a meltdown? But the
Ah.
tantrum maybe became a full meltdown.
Yes,
She couldn't
because
control
she
herself.
Kerana
Yeah.
naturally
Yeah.
her ability was overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Her desire couldn't match her capability at that moment. So you were, I think that bila hantu keluar is because when you close the door, that smaller
It lifted,
space,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that smaller space kind of spoke to the body,
Yeah.
kan? And that's why in many ways parents may not recognize many children. I give you the example just to continue if you don't mind, going to what do you call those parks, and they would want the child to enjoy doing this ride, but the child is terrified. But the parents don't recognize
Yes.
and continue to believe, and that's not co-regulating. Kan?
That's
So
scary for them.
that is scary,
Yeah.
and that whether you are a typical child ataupun neurodivergent.
No, and sometimes parents, we don't see it, right?
Yeah.
Mean well.
Because we don't understand.
We mean well. There's so
We
many
mean
things.
well.
And
Expectation
also,
kita.
Exactly, we
and
mean
then kalau
well.
benda tu, seronok bagi kita
Yeah.
pun harapkan sangat anak
Exactly.
boleh join kita. Kita pun nak anak kita join kita dalam kita punya interest, kan?
Yes.
That's the other thing to
intention is
remember.
good,
You know,
kan?
of course, intention is good there, but also the whole thing about that flipping that thing, right?
Yeah.
So we've been talking about how join lah anak. You know,
Yes.
cubalah tengok interest dia whatever. Because if you think about it, this is the things yang kita nak.
Yeah.
So kalau kita nak, mungkin anak kita nak juga. So we don't understand. So please go back to the thing. So we want, right?
So-
they don't even understand
I
that the
think-
child is actually genuinely frightened.
That's right. So
And
the answer is by modeling it again and again. Don't stop modeling it. Just take it a bit forward. Maybe this time you buy the ticket already, just to show it's okay. If you are afraid, then we don't need to go. Now that is co-regulation.
Yes.
Kan? You go and understand.
we'll go another day.
We will
kind
go
of thing.
another
Or we
day.
will, like macam when I think Anya was talking about going on, there was an outing or something. Step by step lah.
Step by
right?
step.
Pasar Ramadan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that one was a
And
bit fast.
that-
but yeah.
That
but
builds.
yes, she moved around, waited in the car.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
yeah.
I have one
Gradual
cerita
exposure.
pendek if we can, if we have the time.
Yeah.
It's a hopeful, happy cerita on co-regulating.
Tak ada hantu
Tak ada hantu. But it is in a hotel and there's a lift.
Not the hotel that I'm staying
Tak payah cerita.
So this Hans was about 3 I think kan. Dan pada waktu tu memang transitioning dari satu tempat ke tempat lain memang sangat sukar untuk dia. And one of the ways I had learned to co-regulate for him sebab dia tak boleh bertutur, he can't speak, was by singing him songs that he likes.
Okay.
So we were transitioning. I went to visit my cousin who visited. She was in a hotel. So we went up to a hotel room. I was having such a good time, and I instinctively knew the minute we had to leave the room to go down, mesti there will be some kind of tantrum or something.
Tak nak balik.
Don't want to go into the lift to transition. We were not even going to balik. We were going to makan kat bawah.
Okay.
And so transitioning was a challenge for him.
Okay.
So masuk lift, it was quite a high floor. Dah start lah. So it was me, my husband, my son, my auntie, my cousin and a few other people yang kita tak kenal. The minute he started to so I tebalkan my skin. His favourite song at the time was Lompat si katak lompat. And so I started singing. And my cousin started singing. My auntie
Nice.
started singing. So
Nice.
before you know it, the whole lift was lompat sikat tak lompat.
Wow.
Sampai we came downstairs and everybody clapped.
Yay.
And he was so happy. So it was a positive transition for
Right.
him. So I think
Okay.
especially for parents yang ada anak yang maybe susah nak bercakap or cannot bercakap yet, this is one way you can regulate them.
And that is creating
Yeah.
creating the social expectation of the other people in the lift,
Yes.
actually,
Yeah.
kan?
Yeah.
Because we always think it is the child, but what you demonstrated there is creating the social environment that is safe
Yep.
and fun, and that
Yeah.
created the safety.
No, so that is the last, probably maybe we close off with this reminder that you affect potentially your child so much, right? In so many
Yes.
ways, that mood and all that. So please don't forget that as we talk about social emotional regulation, please make sure that you are in a good place.
Indeed.
Macam
Itu
you
dia.
have to like you have to be prepared lah, kan? That we've mentioned this also again before. Check diri kita dulu lah.
Betul.
You know, you check yourself and all that. Like I have a routine now before I go in and because it takes 2 minutes. It doesn't take long. Kita ingat kita kena rush into the situation, nak membantu whatever lah kalau dia dalam keadaan yang dah tak tenteram or start to melt down. But you know, it's worth it. Just take that time a little bit. Because kalau kita tak ready, you
Yeah.
know that you haven't bought, and then you're, you know, whatever
bawa
you need to
hantu
do, you need
masuk.
to do. That's right. Jangan bawa hantu.
Itu
Don't
lah.
bring your own hantu-hantu
So
lah.
social
The
emotional
situation, you know.
is
Just
self
realize it might
yeah.
be
is
there,
self-care for
It's
yourself.
self-care. It's true.
Betul?
It is
It
self-care.
is all connected.
Baru boleh build resilient.
Hence social emotional communication.
Yeah.
Bukan saja socialization.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is tightly integrated social emotional communication.
Macam kita pun bersosial untuk penuhi tabung emosi kita.
Betul.
Hmm.
Yeah.
To fill our cup.
Exactly. Yeah,
You
by the
can't
way,
pour
the
from an empty
reverse
cup.
is
Yeah.
also true. Alhamdulillah, it's true. This is how we fix those telomeres, the things that protect the ends of our DNA. So we know they are very frayed, and that's why, sorry, families, parents of neurodivergence, especially mothers, all of you are extra stressed, aging, all that. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's true. The science says it's true.
Self-care.
But you can fix it. Exactly.
Self-care, love yourself
and by
first.
connection. The hanging out with your girls.
Yep. Betul.
You know, building that
Doing
whole
a
the happy
podcast
thing
together.
again. Yeah.
And that
Fix
is
those things that have
and-
resulted in the premature aging.
in a way that's our motivation
Yeah.
to give our children the social communication and social emotional ability.
Because we know what is given to us.
Exactly.
So we model that bit also.
Exactly.
We want our children to have
Of
it.
which you started by saying,
It's true.
please, as you are concerned with academic performance, but start with the safety
Start this.
and the social emotional
Yes.
competence.
Do this first. It has to be, it's the foundation. It's at least as, if not more important.
Yep.
That's the, I hope that is the takeaway from today about how so important to invest in social emotional learning
Yes.
for your child, for your family, for,
For
yourself.
yourself.
Agree.
Okay.
On that note.
So kita dah bincang betapa penting, bagaimana pengalaman kita. It's not just a skill kan. Kita macam terapi, belajar ni. Apa yang kita buat lepas terapi, outside of the classroom, outside of the center, which kita lah. Apa yang berubah bila anak pergi terapi, terapis pun berubah. Pergi sekolah, cikgu-cikgu pun berubah. Yang kekal ialah selagi hayat lah kan. Kita sebagai ibu, sebagai bapa, sebagai ahli keluarga dengan anak kita, connection.
Yes.
Dan perkembangan ni bukan perkembangan pada anak je, perkembangan diri kita lah. Kita lepas 10 tahun ni belajar banyak apa yang kita boleh buat
Sangat
pada
membantu.
diri kita.
Ya,
Kita
betul.
banyak fokus apa kita boleh bantu pada anak kita. Tapi along the way, apa yang kita boleh buat pada diri kita untuk kita bantu dengan lebih berkesan lah. Kan?
Yeah. Finally, we can only control ourselves.
Yeah. So dengan itu terima kasih kepada pendengar, penonton episod kali ini. Semoga episod ini memberi peringatan. Mungkin banyak kita dah tahu sebenarnya. So peringatan, pengajaran juga, cerita-cerita mana yang hantu ni kita bukan cerita pasal makhluk halus tadi, nak disclaimer. Emosi-emosi negatif lah yang dapat dirasai oleh anak kita yang makhluk halus tu anak kita lah masa dia kecil. Bukannya hantu.
Yeah.
Dia ada makhluk halus.
Yes. Faham.
So thank you and leave a comment kalau ada apa-apa persoalan, ada apa-apa suggestion maybe, and with all the love from all of us, take care, and until we meet again in the next episode. Thank you.
Selamat
Thank
jalan.
you. See you soon.